An Arab millionaire buys a single mother at an illegal auction to save her son, but what he discovers leaves him shocked. Before we start the story, share in the comments where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. Layla stood at an illegal auction, a place where dignity was traded away. She wore a red dress that highlighted her curves, but symbolized nothing but shame to her. Her restless eyes scanned the room, desperately taking in the scene. Men in expensive suits evaluated women as if they were merchandise. For Layla, this was rock bottom, but it was also her only option. Her son, Amir, was gravely ill and urgently needed treatment she could never afford as a waitress in a small cafe. She had already sold everything of value she owned. Now, only herself remained to sacrifice. The weight of the choices that brought her there felt unbearable, but each time she thought of Amir, her heart hardened. She would do anything for him. Lot number 23, the event organizer announced, his smile fake and rehearsed. Layla felt her body freeze. It was her turn. Taking a deep breath, she stood up and walked toward the stage. For a moment, she thought about backing out, but she reminded herself, "I'm not doing this for me. This is for Amir." As she stepped onto the stage, the organizer began describing her with rehearsed adjectives. A true gem. Exotic beauty, natural grace. The words felt empty, as though he were describing an object rather than a person. Suddenly, a man sitting in the last row caught her attention. He sat silently, his serious gaze seeming to pierce through the souls of everyone in the room. Karim al-Hassan. Layla didn't know who he was, but his presence was commanding and impossible to ignore. Unlike the others, he didn't seem interested in the spectacle or in flattering the organizer. He just observed her, his expression unreadable. The bidding began. Layla swallowed hard, trying not to show the panic she felt. The idea of being bought was unbearable, but she knew this might save Amir. The auction moved quickly, with several men competing for Lot 23. Each bid made her heart race faster. Then, a deep, firm voice cut through the room. 2 million. Silence filled the hall. All eyes turned to the man in the last row, Karim al-Hassan. He rose slowly, exuding an imposing presence and a gaze that dared anyone to challenge him. "Anyone else?" the organizer asked, clearly surprised. After a few seconds of hesitation, he smiled and declared, "Sold." Layla felt her legs weaken, but she stayed steady as she stepped down from the stage. Her eyes briefly met Karim's, and something about him made her pause. It wasn't a look of desire or superiority like the others. There was something different. Determination, perhaps. Karim walked toward her, stopping just a few steps away. He was tall, with sharp features and an aura of authority. Without saying a word, he extended his hand, as if offering to help her. Layla looked at him warily before accepting the gesture. "We need to talk," he said, his tone firm but controlled. Layla didn't know what to expect, but followed Karim to a private room. Once inside, he closed the door and turned to face her, crossing his arms. "Do you realize what you've just done?" he asked, his voice heavy with seriousness. Layla took a deep breath. "I didn't have a choice." Karim studied her for a moment before responding. "I'm not here for amusement, Layla. I didn't participate in that auction to take advantage of anyone." She frowned, surprised. "Then why did you do it?" Karim leaned forward slightly, locking eyes with her. "Because if it weren't me, someone with far worse intentions would have done the same. I want to help you and your son." Layla felt his words wash over her like a wave, both of relief and distrust. "Why would someone like you help someone like me?" Karim gave a faint smile, one that seemed more sad than friendly. "Let's just say I understand the kind of desperation that drives someone to do what you did today." Layla still wasn't sure if she could trust him, but Karim's sincere gaze made her want to believe him, if only for a moment. He continued, "I'll take care of your son's treatment, but I need you to trust me and agree to a few conditions." She hesitated. "What kind of conditions?" "You and Amir will stay at my house for a while. You won't be required to do anything except to take care of your son and maybe help my niece with some educational tasks." Layla's eyes widened in surprise. "That's it?" "That's it," he confirmed. "I don't want anything from you, Layla. I just want to make sure you and Amir are safe." As surreal as it all sounded, something in Karim's voice made her believe he was being honest. With tears in her eyes, she finally nodded. "All right, I accept." Karim straightened up, his expression resolute. "Good. Tomorrow, we'll start a new chapter. Layla knew her life had changed forever that night, but she had no idea that the secrets the future held would turn everything she thought she knew upside down. Layla looked out the window of the luxurious car as the city blurred into a mix of lights and shadows. The silence inside the vehicle was oppressive. Up front, the driver kept his eyes firmly on the road, while beside her, Kareem sat in a relaxed posture, his gaze fixed on some distant point ahead, as though calculating his next move. The night air was still cool, but the tension between them seemed to heat the atmosphere. Layla couldn't decide whether she felt relieved or uneasy. Kareem's promise sounded sincere, but she knew nothing in life came without a price. "Where are we going?" she finally asked, her voice breaking the heavy silence. "To my house," Kareem replied without looking at her. "From now on, you and Amir will be under my care." Layla frowned. "Why are you doing this? What's the real reason?" Kareem sighed, rubbing his chin as if he'd been expecting the question. "I've already told you. I couldn't just stand by while someone with bad intentions bought you in that place. If you can't trust me yet, I understand, but over time, I hope you will." Layla crossed her arms, holding herself as though trying to build a shield. "You seem confident, but how can I trust someone I've known for only a few hours?" This time, Kareem turned to her, his dark eyes meeting hers. "I don't expect your trust right now, Layla. I know that takes time, but for now, I want you to focus on what really matters. Amir." The mention of her son made Layla's shoulders relax slightly. She looked down at the car floor, unable to meet Kareem's gaze any longer. He was right. Amir was all that mattered. When they arrived at the gates of the mansion, a chill ran down Layla's spine. The place looked more like a palace, with tall iron gates that opened silently, revealing a driveway lined with perfectly arranged trees. The main house was massive, its illuminated windows glowing like stars. For Layla, who was used to cramped apartments and modest rooms, it felt like stepping into another world. As she stepped out of the car, she clutched her bag tightly, as if afraid of losing the only piece of her old life that still belonged to her. Kareem walked ahead, his firm footsteps echoing on the marble entrance. Layla followed him, trying to take in her surroundings. Inside the mansion, everything was as impressive as the exterior. Luxurious furniture, artwork hanging on the walls, and an enormous crystal chandelier dangling from the ceiling. Layla felt completely out of place. "This will be your home for a while," Kareem said, stopping in the middle of the grand hall. He gestured toward a woman approaching them. "Layla, this is Amira. She'll make sure you and Amir have everything you need." Amira was a middle-aged woman with a gentle smile that contrasted with the intimidating surroundings. "It's a pleasure to meet you, ma'am," she said, with a slight nod of her head. "Please call me Layla," she replied, feeling a small sense of warmth from the kind greeting. Kareem nodded at Amira, as if handing over the responsibility to her from that point on. "I'll leave you to get settled. Tomorrow, we'll discuss the next steps." Before Layla could respond, he turned and headed up the stairs, disappearing to the upper floor. She wasn't sure whether to feel relieved or frustrated by his abrupt exit. "Come with me, dear," Amira said, breaking the silence. "I'll show you your room and your son's." Layla followed Amira through the mansion's long, quiet hallways. Every corner seemed more extravagant than the last. Finally, they arrived at a door that Amira opened carefully, revealing a spacious bedroom decorated in soft tones and elegant furniture. There was a large bed, a wardrobe already stocked with clothes, and a small table adorned with fresh flowers. "This is your room," Amira said. "Your son's room is just next door. The doctor will be here in the morning to examine him. If you need anything, I'll be nearby." Layla gave her a faint smile of gratitude and stepped into the room, feeling the weight of the day finally press down on her. She sat on the edge of the bed, glancing around. The contrast between the luxury surrounding her now and the simple life she had left behind was almost overwhelming. Later, after checking on Amir in his room, Layla lay down, but sleep wouldn't come. Her mind was crowded with questions. Who really was Kareem al-Hassan? Why was he willing to help? And, most importantly, what would be the consequences of her decision? The next morning, a soft knock on the door woke her. It was Amira, carrying a tray with breakfast. "The doctor has arrived and is ready to examine Amir," she informed her gently. Layla quickly got dressed and took Amir to the makeshift consultation room on the lower floor. Karim was already there, speaking with the doctor. He was dressed impeccably in a suit and appeared as composed as he had been the night before. "The doctor is one of the best in the region," Karim said, turning to her. "They'll make sure Amir gets the care he needs." Layla couldn't help but feel a pang in her heart as she watched Karim interact with the doctor. Beneath his serious demeanor, there seemed to be something sincere about his concern. While the doctor examined Amir, Layla noticed Karim observing her discreetly. He seemed to be studying her, trying to understand more about who she was. Finally, he spoke. "Layla, I know this is all a lot to take in, but I want you to know that my offer comes without any hidden motives." She looked at him, trying to gauge the truth in his words. "Then why are you doing this? I still don't understand." Karim hesitated, as if carefully choosing his words. "Let's just say I've seen people I cared about destroyed by bad choices. I don't want that to happen to you or Amir." Layla felt a chill run through her. Karim's words were sincere, but there was something in his tone, a weight, a shadow of pain, that she couldn't quite understand. She decided not to press him, at least not for now. Instead, she focused on Amir, who was smiling as the doctor spoke to him in a friendly tone. Perhaps, just perhaps, this could be the start of a new life. The sun streamed through the mansion's large windows, bathing everything in a soft light that contrasted with the heaviness Layla still felt in her chest. That morning, she watched Amir play in a garden that seemed like a piece of paradise. The perfectly maintained flowers exuded a delicate fragrance, and the soft grass made Amir smile, a sight Layla hadn't seen in weeks. Still, she couldn't relax. Everything seemed too good to be true. "Amir looks happy," said a voice behind her, interrupting her thoughts. Layla turned to see Karim standing on the veranda. He was dressed casually in a white shirt and light trousers, which made him seem less imposing, though he still carried that gaze that seemed to see beyond the surface. "Yes, he is," Layla replied, trying to mask her lingering distrust. "He's never had a space like this to play in before." Karim stepped down from the veranda and walked over to her, stopping by her side. "Children deserve a place where they can feel free. Amir is safe here." Layla crossed her arms as if trying to shield herself. "I know you've said that before, but I still don't understand why you're doing all this, Karim. It feels like you're carrying something you're trying to make up for." Karim was silent for a moment, his eyes fixed on Amir as the boy chased a butterfly. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I am trying to make up for something, but it's not just that. Amir reminds me that there's still innocence in the world, something I'd forgotten. Let's play a little game for those who only read the comments. Type McDonald's in the comments. Only those who've read this far will get it. Now let's continue with the story." Layla was surprised by his honesty. There was something in Karim's eyes that hinted at a deep pain, something he wasn't ready to fully share. Before she could ask more, a child's voice echoed behind them. "Uncle Karim!" Layla turned to see a little girl running toward them. She looked about 6 years old, with dark curls and sparkling eyes. She hesitated when she noticed Layla's presence, but brightened when she spotted Amir. "Who's he?" she asked, pointing curiously at the boy. "Yasmin, this is Amir," Karim said with a rare, soft smile. "Amir, this is my niece." Yasmin approached timidly, but a smile soon lit up her face. "Do you want to play with me?" she asked, extending her hand to Amir. He looked at Layla, who nodded encouragingly. In seconds, the two children were running through the garden, laughing together. Layla watched them, but her curiosity about Yasmin grew. "She seems very quiet. For a child, I mean." Karim nodded, his expression shifting to something more serious. "Yasmin lost her parents 2 years ago. Since then, I've been trying to take care of her, but she still carries a lot of sadness." Layla felt a pang in her heart. "I'm so sorry, that must be hard for her, and for you too." "It is," Karim replied, not offering more details. "But right now, she seems happy, at least for a little while." Layla didn't want to push, but the way Karim spoke about Yasmin left her intrigued. There was more to the story than he was letting on, something that seemed to hurt him deeply. Later, while Amir and Yasmin played under Amir's supervision, Karim led Layla to a small office in the mansion. The room was decorated with bookshelves filled with volumes and an elegant dark wood desk. Karim sat behind the desk and gestured for Layla to take the chair in front of him. "We need to talk about the next steps," he began. "Amir will receive the best medical care, but there are other matters we need to consider." Layla frowned. "What kind of matters?" "Education, for one. I'd like to enroll Amir in a private school as soon as he's healthy enough. He deserves a chance to grow up in a better environment." Layla felt a mix of gratitude and apprehension. "I appreciate that, but I'm not sure it's a good idea. He's already been through so much, taking him away from what's familiar." Karim raised a hand, gently interrupting her. "I understand. We won't do anything without your approval, but I want you to know that every opportunity will be available to him." Layla didn't know what to say. From the moment she met Karim, he carried a blend of control and kindness that left her unsettled. It was hard to tell where sincerity ended and pragmatism began. Before she could respond, Karim stood and walked to one of the bookshelves. He pulled out an old book with a worn leather cover and placed it on the desk. "This belonged to my sister," he said, his voice heavy with nostalgia. "She used to read it to Yasmin every night before bed. After she passed, Yasmin stopped smiling. But it seems Amir managed to change that, even if just for a moment." Layla ran her hand over the book's cover, feeling the emotional weight it carried. "Karim, I'm so sorry about what happened to your sister. It must be hard raising Yasmin on your own." He nodded, crossing his arms. "It's difficult, but life doesn't wait for us to be ready to handle these things. We just have to keep moving forward." Layla looked at him, realizing that behind his outward strength, Karim was a man scarred by loss. Maybe Yasmin and Amir can help each other. They seem to be getting along really well. Karim smiled, a rare and brief gesture. Maybe. They're children after all. They have an incredible ability to connect and heal. Layla held the book a little tighter. For the first time since arriving at the mansion, she felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, this place could become more than a temporary refuge. Maybe it was the beginning of something greater. The mansion was silent, with only the sound of the wind rustling through the trees in the garden. Layla walked through the hallways after putting Amir to bed. The boy was calmer than he had been in months, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a small sense of relief. Yet her mind was still filled with doubts and questions about everything she had discovered since arriving in this house. Without realizing it, her steps led her to the library. The room was immense, with endless rows of books that seemed to hold centuries of stories and secrets. Layla felt drawn to the space, as if some invisible force had guided her there. She began browsing the books on the shelves, but something on one of the walls caught her attention. It was a framed photograph. Layla approached slowly, her eyes widening as she recognized one of the people in the picture. Her mother. She blinked, incredulous, thinking she might be imagining things. But there was no doubt. The woman in the photo was Rania, her mother. She looked younger, with a faint smile, standing next to another woman, a refined young lady with delicate features and a gold crescent moon necklace. Layla froze for a few seconds, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Why would a photo of her mother be in Karim's library? And who was the woman standing beside her? Before she could process it all, a voice came from behind her, low yet laced with tension. "Layla, what are you doing here?" She turned abruptly to see Karim standing in the doorway. His expression was hard to read, somewhere between curiosity and discomfort. "I was exploring," she said hesitantly. "But then I saw this." She pointed to the photograph. Karim walked slowly toward her, his eyes fixed on the image. When he stopped beside Layla, his expression shifted slightly, as though something about the photo unsettled him. "Who are the women in this picture?" Layla asked, trying to keep her voice steady, though her heart was racing. Karim hesitated for a brief moment, but quickly responded with apparent calm. "The young woman on the right is my sister, Soraya." He gestured toward the woman wearing the crescent moon necklace. "The other, I don't know. She must have been someone who worked here." Layla felt her chest tighten. He didn't know? How was that possible? "That woman is my mother," she said, waiting for a reaction. Karim raised an eyebrow in surprise. "Your mother? Are you sure?" "Yes," Layla insisted, holding his gaze. "I would recognize my mother anywhere." Karim remained silent, shifting his eyes back to the photograph. He seemed to analyze the image more closely, but his rigid posture betrayed the discomfort he was trying to hide. "Unfortunately, I don't remember her," he finally said, his tone calculated. "And I'm not sure your mother worked here." Layla didn't know what to think. Something about Karim's demeanor felt off. Was he lying? And if he was, why? Later that night, Layla couldn't sleep. Her mother's face in the photograph kept flashing in her mind, along with Karim's words. Something didn't add up. He clearly knew more than he was letting on. Determined to uncover the truth, Layla decided to investigate. She knew that Amira, the housekeeper, had worked at the mansion for many years and might have answers. The next morning, Layla found Amira in the kitchen, overseeing the breakfast preparations. "Amira," she began, trying to sound casual, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, dear. What do you need to know?" Amira replied with a warm smile. "My mother, Rania, I think she worked here in the past. Do you remember her?" Amira looked surprised by the question but quickly nodded. "Rania? Oh yes, I remember her. She worked here for many years back when Soraya was alive. She was such a sweet and hardworking woman." A chill ran down Layla's spine. "Do you know what she did here?" "She was one of Soraya's caregivers," Amira explained. "They were very close, almost like sisters. I think Soraya trusted her more than anyone else." Amira's words confirmed Layla's suspicions. Her mother not only knew Soraya, they were close. But this raised even more questions. Why had her mother never mentioned it? And why had Karim lied about knowing her? Later, while Karim was away at a meeting, Layla returned to the library. This time she was determined to find answers. She began searching through the books and papers on the shelves near the photograph. After several minutes, she found a small notebook with a worn cover and the initials SA engraved on the front. As she opened the notebook, Layla realized it was a journal. The pages were filled with Soraya's elegant handwriting. As she read, Layla found several mentions of her mother, Rania. "Rania is the only person I can trust. She always knows what to say to calm me. I don't know what I would do without her." Today, Rania and I talked about the future. She said she sometimes feels like she needs to leave, but I don't want her to go. She's like a sister to me. Layla kept reading, growing more and more intrigued. The journal revealed a deep bond between Soraya and Rania, but it also mentioned tensions within the family. Karim and their father seemed to disapprove of the closeness between the two. "My father said Rania is interfering where she doesn't belong, but he doesn't understand. She means everything to me." Layla felt a wave of emotion as she read. Her mother had been a significant figure in Soraya's life, but something must have gone wrong. That evening, during dinner, Layla decided to confront Karim again. "Amira told me my mother worked here," she began without hesitation. "She was very close to your sister Soraya. Why didn't you tell me that before?" Karim set his utensils down on the table and looked at her with a serious expression. "I didn't know your mother was the same person in the photo, Layla, and even if I had, I didn't think it was relevant." "Not relevant?" Layla said, incredulously. "My mother spent years in this house. She was practically a sister to Soraya. How could that not be relevant?" Karim sighed, averting his gaze. "Perhaps I underestimated its importance. But if you want to know more, I promise to help you investigate." Layla could tell he was still hiding something, but she decided to hold back for now. She knew the truth was there, waiting to be uncovered, and she was determined to find it, no matter what it took. Layla was resolute. From the moment she discovered that her mother, Rania, had worked in Karim's mansion for years, and that her presence there was more than a coincidence, her mind hadn't rested. There was a mystery to unravel, and Layla knew that to protect Amir and understand the connection to Karim's family, she needed to uncover the whole truth. After the tense dinner with Karim, Layla returned to the library the next day. Soraya's journal, which she had found earlier, was her main clue. Layla needed to examine every detail of the notebook, convinced that it held critical answers about what had happened between her mother and Karim's sister. She sat at the oak table, carefully opening the journal. Soraya's words seemed to leap off the pages. As Layla read, the emotions of the young woman became clear. Soraya was lonely, constrained by her family's rigid expectations, and saw Rania as a source of comfort. "Rania is the only person who understands me," one entry read. "She listens to me, gives me advice, and never judges me, unlike my father or even Karim." It's as if she's my real sister. But the further Layla read, the darker Soraya's words became. One passage made her stop, her heart racing. Today my father said that Rania needs to leave. He thinks her presence is a bad influence. He doesn't understand how important she is to me. I don't know what I'll do if she goes. Layla swallowed hard. This confirmed that something had happened between her mother and Karim's family. The question was, why? That afternoon, while Amir and Yasmin played in the garden, Layla decided to seek out Amira again. The housekeeper seemed like a reliable source of information, and Layla knew she needed to dig deeper. Amira was in the main hall, adjusting a vase of flowers. When she saw Layla approaching, she gave her a warm smile. "Is something wrong, dear?" "Amira?" Layla began hesitantly. "Do you know why my mother stopped working here? What happened to make her leave?" Amira looked surprised by the question and paused to think for a moment. Well, it was all very complicated. I remember Rania being very close to Soraya, as you already know. They were inseparable. But one day, Karim's father decided it was better for Rania to leave. Layla frowned. "Why? What did he have against my mother?" Amira sighed. Mr. Al-Hassan was a very strict man. He didn't think Soraya forming close bonds with someone outside the family, especially someone who worked for them. He believed Rania was interfering too much in Soraya's life. Layla stood silent, processing the information. But did he fire her, or was there more to it? "I don't know all the details," Amir admitted. "But I remember Rania left suddenly and Soraya was devastated. After that, Soraya was never the same." Amir's words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Layla felt a mix of sadness and anger. Her mother had never mentioned any of this, but it was clear that the incident had left deep scars on both Rania and Soraya. Later, Karim returned from one of his meetings. He looked tired, but Layla decided it was the right time to confront him. She found him in his office, reviewing some papers. When he saw Layla enter, he raised an eyebrow, surprised. "You've been very curious lately," he remarked with a slight smile, but Layla wasn't in the mood for small talk. "Karim, I need to know the truth about my mother," she said directly. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "I've already told you what I know, Layla. Your mother worked here, but I don't have many details." "That's not true," she retorted, feeling her frustration rise. "You knew my mother was important to Soraya. You knew she was sent away on purpose." Karim was silent for a moment, his expression growing more serious. Finally, he sighed. "You're right. I knew Rania was important to Soraya. But what you need to understand is that my father was a controlling man. He believed he was protecting Soraya by making your mother leave." "Protecting her from what?" Layla asked, her voice trembling. "Was my mother a threat?" Karim shook his head. "No. But my father was afraid that Soraya would be influenced by Rania to make rebellious decisions. He always wanted to maintain absolute control over us." Layla felt tears forming in her eyes but held them back. "So my mother was fired because your father thought she was giving your sister too much freedom?" Karim nodded. "That's exactly what happened. But Layla, you need to understand. Soraya was devastated. She tried to fight my father, but he was relentless." "And you?" Layla asked, staring at him. "What did you do?" Karim averted his gaze, looking ashamed. "I was young at the time. I didn't know how to stand up to my father. I did what he told me, like I always had." Layla felt a wave of disappointment wash over her. She understood that Karim had also been a victim of his father's control, but she couldn't help but wonder how different things might have been if he had supported her mother and Soraya. That night, Layla returned to the library. She sat at the desk and reopened Soraya's diary. There was one entry she hadn't read yet, and her hands trembled as she turned the page. "Today was the worst day of my life. My father sent Rania away. I begged, I cried, but he wouldn't budge. He said it was for my own good. But he doesn't understand. Rania was the only person who made me feel free. Now I feel alone again. I don't know how I'll cope." Layla closed the diary, tears streaming down her face. Her mother had been a light in Soraya's life, but that light was taken away by Karim's father's tyrannical control. And now, decades later, that story was still casting shadows over Layla and Amir's lives. But there was more. Layla felt that she still didn't know the full truth. There was a missing piece to this puzzle, something that tied her mother to the mansion even more deeply. and she was determined to find out what it was. The next morning, Layla's heart was in turmoil. The pieces of her mother Rania's past were slowly coming together, but they left gaps that made her question everything. Something profound had happened in that house decades ago, and the truth felt closer than ever. Determined, Layla returned to the library. It was the place where fragments of the past seemed to surface: the diary of Soraya, photographs, old documents. After hours of searching through dusty records and forgotten notebooks, she discovered an envelope hidden among the books on one of the highest shelves. It was small, sealed with wax, and had Soraya's handwriting on the back. Carefully, Layla opened the envelope. Inside was a letter addressed to Rania, written by none other than Karim's father, Mr. Al-Hassan. As she read the first lines, a wave of shock coursed through her body. The letter left no room for doubt. Her mother had been involved in a secret affair with Karim's father. The words were intense and filled with emotion, revealing a relationship that had been kept hidden from everyone. My dearest Rania, I know what we have cannot be revealed to the world, but you are the light that brightens my darkest days. Despite the challenges, I cannot stay away from you. All I ask is that you trust me. Always. Layla read and reread the letter, her hands trembling. How could this be possible? Her mother had never mentioned anything about a relationship with Karim's father. And this explained so much: why she had been abruptly dismissed, why Karim's father had been so determined to separate her from Soraya. It was a scandal the Al-Hassan family could never allow to come to light. Later, Layla sat in the garden, still trying to process her discovery. She held the letter as if it were a piece of her own stolen history. What else did Karim know? Could he have been hiding something this significant from her? When Karim returned to the mansion that afternoon, Layla decided it was time to confront him. She found him in his office, as usual, reviewing documents. Hearing the door open, he looked up, but his expression immediately changed when he saw the look on her face. "We need to talk," Layla said firmly. "Of course," Karim replied, setting his papers aside. "What's wrong?" Layla wasted no time. She placed the letter on the desk, looking directly into his eyes. "Did you know about this?" Karim picked up the letter carefully, reading it quickly. When he finished, he let out a deep sigh and ran a hand over his face. "Yes," he admitted, finally. Layla stepped closer, her voice trembling with anger and disbelief. "You knew? You knew my mother had an affair with your father and didn't tell me?" Karim placed the letter back on the desk, meeting her gaze with a mixture of guilt and determination. "I knew about the affair, Layla, but I didn't know you were Rania's daughter. I only realized it when you told me her name." "And even then, you lied to me," Layla accused, her voice rising. "You knew my mother was unfairly dismissed because of her relationship with your father, and you chose to keep it from me. Why?" Karim stood and walked toward the window, his movements deliberate as though he was carefully considering his response. Finally, he spoke. "I didn't want to hurt you." Layla let out a bitter laugh. "Hurt me? You thought hiding this from me was the best way to protect me? Don't you think I had the right to know the truth about my mother?" "Yes, you did," Karim said, turning to face her. "But I knew that truth would be painful. Your mother was a wonderful woman, Layla, and she didn't deserve what happened to her. My father put her in an impossible position. He was married, powerful, and when everything spiraled out of control, he discarded her to protect the family's reputation." His words only fueled Layla's anger and pain. "And you did nothing," she said, crossing her arms. "You knew all of this and let it happen. You let my mother be treated like she was nothing." Karim closed his eyes for a moment, as if trying to absorb the weight of her accusations. "I was young, Layla. I didn't know how to stand up to my father. He was a ruthless man, and anyone who defied him faced the consequences. I'm not trying to justify what happened. I'm just saying that, at the time, I didn't have the power to change anything." Layla shook her head, unable to accept his excuses. "But you have power now. And yet, you chose to deceive me, to pretend you didn't know anything. Why, Karim? Why didn't you tell me from the start?" Karim stepped closer to her, his expression filled with guilt. "Because I didn't want you to carry the burden of what happened between your mother and my father. I didn't want you to believe that her life was defined by that relationship." "But it was," Layla said, her voice breaking. "She lost everything because of him. and I grew up knowing nothing about it." The silence that followed was heavy. Kareem had no more answers, and Layla felt tears streaming down her face. It was too much to process, too much to bear. "I just wanted to protect you," Kareem finally said, his voice low, "but I understand if you can't forgive me." Layla stared at him for a moment, trying to decide how she felt. Part of her wanted to scream, to blame Kareem for everything, but at the same time she knew he had been a victim of his father's control as well. He had failed to protect her and Rania, but he wasn't the true culprit. "I don't know if I can trust you again," she said firmly, "but I know I need to uncover the whole truth, and I'll do it, with or without your help." Kareem nodded, respecting her determination. "I'll help you, Layla. I promise I won't hide anything anymore." Layla didn't reply. She simply took the letter from the desk and left the office, leaving Kareem alone with his guilt. She knew this was only the beginning. Her mother's past was closer to being uncovered, but Layla felt that the answers she sought might change everything forever. The days that followed saw Layla and Kareem spending more time together than ever. Since their confrontation about Rania's past and her affair with Kareem's father, the two had grown unexpectedly closer. Kareem began to show a more vulnerable side, sharing fragments of his life that had long been buried under his facade of control and power. Layla, on the other hand, felt torn. On one side, she was still struggling to fully trust him. On the other, she was starting to see a more human side of Kareem, a side she hadn't expected to find. On a sunny afternoon, Layla was in Amir's room, helping him put together a puzzle. He laughed as he fit the final piece, filling her heart with joy. Taking care of Amir always gave her a sense of purpose, even amidst the emotional turmoil she was going through. "Are you having fun, my love?" she asked, stroking his hair gently. "Yes, Mommy," Amir replied with a smile, his eyes sparkling with happiness. Layla hugged him, cherishing the purity of the moment. Amir was her priority, her anchor in a world that seemed to be falling apart. Despite the revelations about her mother, what truly mattered to Layla was ensuring Amir's future. Later that same day, Layla went to the office where Kareem was reviewing paperwork. He seemed focused, but when he saw her enter, a soft smile appeared on his face. "Is everything all right?" he asked, setting the papers aside. Layla sat in a chair across from his desk. "I'm just thinking about everything. It feels like my life has been turned upside down since I got here." Kareem leaned forward slightly, his eyes locked on hers. "I know how that feels. Sometimes it seems like the weight of the past never leaves us, doesn't it?" Layla nodded. "Yes, but what amazes me the most is how you've managed to carry all of this. Losing your sister, your father's control, it must have been so hard." Kareem sighed, glancing away for a moment. "It was. But in some ways, it shaped who I am. I learned to bury my pain and move forward, even when it felt impossible." "I admire that," Layla said, not realizing her words carried more emotion than she had intended. Kareem smiled faintly, but there was something deeper in his expression, something Layla couldn't immediately identify. He stood and walked over to her, stopping beside her chair. "Layla," he began, his voice softer now. "I don't know how to say this without it sounding inappropriate, but over the past few days, I've started to feel something for you. Something that goes beyond admiration." Layla was speechless. Before she could respond, Kareem leaned in and kissed her softly. It was a brief moment, but it was filled with intensity, leaving Layla breathless. When he pulled back, his eyes were filled with sincerity. "I admire your strength, your determination, and honestly, I think I'm falling in love with you." Layla remained silent, unable to organize her thoughts. Finally, she murmured, I don't know what to say." Kareem nodded, respecting her hesitation. "You don't have to say anything right now. I just wanted you to know." In the nights that followed, Layla found herself thinking more and more about Kareem. The kiss had left her confused, but had also awakened something inside her. She tried to push the thoughts away, focusing on Amir, but at night, when she was alone, she couldn't help it. Finally, she admitted to herself she was falling in love with him too. Kareem made her feel things she had never felt before. He was both strong and vulnerable, and Layla could no longer ignore how much he had come to mean to her. A few days later, Kareem was in his office organizing some old papers. He remembered drawers he hadn't opened in years, filled with things from his father's time. While sifting through the documents, he found a wooden box at the back of a drawer. Inside were old letters. He picked one up and immediately recognized the handwriting. It was from Rania, Layla's mother. "I'm pregnant," the letter began, and Karim felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. Rania explained that she was expecting a child with Karim's father and was asking for financial help for treatments during her pregnancy. Karim read and reread the letter, trying to absorb what he was discovering, but that wasn't all. There was another letter, dated shortly after the first. "I won't terminate the pregnancy. I've decided to leave and raise my child on my own. I know you'll never accept her, but I don't care. She will be my joy, my reason to live." Karim felt as though the air had been knocked out of his lungs. Layla was Rania's daughter, and now he realized that her father was also his father. Later, Karim found Layla in the garden. She was sitting on a bench, watching Amir play with Yasmin. When she saw the expression on Karim's face, she knew something was wrong. "What is it?" she asked, worried. Karim sat beside her, holding the letters he had found. He hesitated for a moment before handing them to Layla. "You need to read this," he said. Layla took the letters and began reading. As she read, her expression shifted from confusion to absolute shock. By the time she finished, tears were streaming down her face. This means that—" "You're my sister," Karim said, finishing her thought. "Rania's daughter with my father." Layla brought her hands to her face, feeling the world spin around her. "This can't be true. It can't." "I didn't want to believe it either," Karim said, his voice heavy with emotion. "But these letters confirm everything. My father knew and did nothing. He let your mother leave and pretended you didn't exist." Layla shook her head, struggling to process the revelation, but what devastated her even more was what she felt for Karim. "This can't be happening," she whispered. Karim lowered his head, clearly battling his own emotions. "I don't know what to do either, Layla, but I know one thing. I fell in love with you, and now I've discovered that you're my sister." The silence between them was unbearable. Both were devastated, crushed by the truth that united and separated them at the same time. A heavy stillness hung over the mansion like a dark shadow. Since the heartbreaking discovery that they were siblings, Layla and Karim could barely look at each other. What had once been a growing bond filled with tender moments had turned into an unbearable tension. Both were grappling with a whirlwind of emotions that seemed to have no escape. Layla spent most of her time with Amir, trying to focus on him to push thoughts of Karim away. She knew she needed to be strong for her son, but her heart was in pieces. Every time she thought about the kiss, about the closeness they had shared, the pain grew. She loved him, but not as a brother. One afternoon, while Amir was napping, Layla sat in her room, staring at the open suitcase on her bed. She had made a decision, but wasn't sure how to follow through with it. Every moment under the same roof as Karim felt like the weight of the situation was becoming more unbearable. Let's play a little game for those who only read the comments. Type Coca-Cola in the comments. Only those who've read this far will understand. Now, let's continue the story. There was a soft knock at the door. Layla knew who it was even before she opened it. Karim stood there, his face tired and worn. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice low. Layla nodded and opened the door wider for him to enter. Karim closed the door behind him and stood in silence for a moment, as if searching for the right words. "Layla," he began finally, "I know this is impossible, all of it, but I can't stop thinking about what happened between us before we knew the truth. I wish things were different." Layla turned away, fighting back tears. "I wish they were different too, Karim, but we can't change who we are. You're my brother." The words were painful to say, and their impact was visible on Karim's face. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration and despair. "I know," he said, his voice almost a whisper, "but knowing doesn't make these feelings disappear. It doesn't make what I feel for you go away." Layla finally looked at him, her eyes filled with tears. "And that's exactly why I need to leave." Karim stared at her in disbelief. "Leave? To where? Why?" "Because I can't stay here, Karim," she said, her voice trembling. "I've tried, but every time I look at you, I feel something I shouldn't feel. I love you, but not as a sister, and that's wrong. I can't stay here any longer." "Layla, please don't do this," Karim pleaded, taking a step toward her. I know this is confusing, but we can get through this together. We can. Find a way to deal with this. Layla shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. We can't, Karim. Not when the feelings are this strong. I have to leave. It's the only way to protect myself and Amir. The next morning, Layla began packing her things. Amira noticed the commotion and asked what was happening. Layla explained vaguely that she needed to leave, but didn't give any details. When she finished packing her suitcase, she went to Amir's room. He was sitting on the floor playing with a toy car Karim had given him. Layla knelt beside her son, placing a hand on his shoulder. Amir, we're leaving today, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Amir looked at her, confused. But why, Mommy? I like it here. And Uncle Karim? Layla felt her heart tighten. I know, my love, but it's time for us to go somewhere else. We're going to start a new life, just the two of us. All right? Amir nodded, but the look in his eyes showed that he didn't fully understand. Layla hugged him tightly, inhaling the familiar scent of his hair as she fought to keep herself from breaking down. When Layla came downstairs with Amir and her suitcase, Karim was waiting for her in the hall. He looked devastated, but he kept his composure, clearly trying to respect her decision. So this is it, he said, his voice hoarse. Layla nodded, avoiding his gaze. It's what's best for all of us. Karim stepped closer. Layla, I don't want you to go, but if this is what you need, I won't stop you. Just promise me one thing. Layla finally looked at him, surprised. What is it? Promise me you'll reach out if you ever need anything. Anything, Layla, no matter where you are or how much time has passed. Layla felt the tears threatening to spill again, but she managed to nod. I promise. In the days following Layla's departure, Karim threw himself into work, trying to drown out the thoughts of her. But nothing helped. He replayed every moment they had spent together. From the first day she walked into his life. Knowing she was his sister, and at the same time, the woman he had fallen in love with, was an unbearable pain. He spent hours in his office, revisiting the documents and letters that had uncovered the truth. One night, as he reread the letter in which Rania told Karim's father she was pregnant, he noticed something he had missed before, a name mentioned subtly. My daughter will be named Layla, the letter said. Karim squinted, reading the words again. There was no longer any doubt. Layla was indeed his sister. Every line of that letter confirmed what he already knew, but still struggled to accept. Meanwhile, Layla and Amir were staying in a small inn in the city. Layla spent her nights staring at the ceiling, thinking about Karim. She knew that leaving had been the right decision, but it didn't make the pain any easier to bear. One night, while Amir was sleeping, Layla took out her mother's necklace, which she always kept tucked away. She ran her fingers over the crescent moon-shaped pendant, remembering Rania's words on her deathbed. I always wished you had a sister, so you wouldn't be alone. Layla closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the irony. Her mother had wanted her to have a sister, but instead, she had fallen in love with the brother she never knew she had. I need to move on, she whispered to herself, for me and for Amir. But deep down, she knew that forgetting Karim would be nearly impossible. Layla woke to the sound of Amir softly crying beside her. When she placed her hand on his forehead, she felt the intense heat of a high fever. Her heart raced as she quickly picked him up. He was pale, and his small body trembled. Amir, my love, it's going to be okay, she said, trying to soothe him while reaching for her phone to call a taxi. The ride to the hospital was a blur. Layla held Amir in her arms, murmuring desperate prayers as tears streamed down her face. When they arrived, she quickly explained the situation to the receptionist, who called for a doctor. Amir was taken in for an examination, and Layla was left in the waiting room, feeling helpless. Meanwhile, Karim was in his office, lost in thought as he so often was since Layla had left. Suddenly, his phone rang. It was Amira, who had heard about Amir through one of Layla's friends. Karim, Amira began, her voice urgent. Amir is in the hospital. Layla took him there this morning. He's very sick. Karim didn't hesitate. He grabbed his car keys and left immediately. The thought of Layla facing this alone was unbearable. When he arrived at the hospital, Karim found Layla sitting in a corner of the waiting room. Her eyes were red, her face etched with worry and exhaustion. When she saw him, her expression shifted to one of surprise and then relief. Karim, she murmured. "What are you doing here?" "Amira told me," he replied, sitting down beside her. "I couldn't stay away." "How is Amir?" Layla shook her head, trying to hold back tears. "I don't know yet. They're running tests." Kareem placed a hand on her shoulder, a gesture that spoke volumes without the need for words. He would stay by her side, no matter what happened. After some time, the doctor returned. Layla stood immediately, holding her breath. "Your son is stable now," the doctor said with a reassuring smile. "The fever was caused by a viral infection, but we've managed to bring it under control. He'll need rest and plenty of fluids over the next few days, but he'll be fine." Layla let out a sob of relief and covered her face with her hands as tears streamed down. Karim helped her back into her seat, placing a comforting hand on her back. "He's going to be fine, Layla," Karim said gently. She nodded, trying to regain her composure. After Amir was discharged and brought back home, Karim invited Layla to have coffee with him. She hesitated but eventually agreed. She needed a break, even if just for a few minutes. As they sipped their coffee in silence, Karim finally broke the ice. "Layla, I've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened, and I want to do something for you and Amir." Layla frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" "I want to transfer half of my fortune to you," he said firmly. Layla nearly dropped her coffee cup. "What? No, Karim, I can't accept that." "You can, and you will," he insisted. "You deserve it. Your mother suffered so much because of my father, and I feel like this is the least I can do to make up for his mistakes." Layla shook her head, tears starting to stream down her face again. "Karim, you don't have to do this. I don't want your money." "This isn't about money, Layla," he replied, holding her hand. "It's about giving you what you deserve. You can't refuse." She looked at him for a long moment and finally nodded, still reluctant. A few days later, while sorting through his late father's old office, Karim stumbled upon something that would change his life forever. As he rummaged through the drawers, he found an envelope marked "Confidential." Inside, there was an adoption document. He read it, feeling the ground vanish beneath his feet. He wasn't biologically related to the Al-Hassan family. He was adopted. The words swirled in his mind. This means, I'm not Layla's brother. Karim didn't know how to react. Part of him was devastated to discover that his entire life had been built on a lie. But another part of him felt a wave of relief and hope. He wasn't Layla's brother. The love he felt for her wasn't wrong. Karim went straight to the house where Layla was staying. She opened the door, surprised to see him there so late. "Karim? What happened?" she asked, concerned by the expression on his face. "Layla," he began, taking a deep breath. "I found something. Something that changes everything." She frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" Karim stepped inside and handed her the document. Layla read it slowly, her expression shifting from confusion to utter shock. "You were adopted?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Karim nodded, his eyes fixed on hers. "I'm not biologically related to my father. That means we're not siblings, Layla." Layla let the paper fall to the floor as her hands flew to her mouth. The revelation was almost too much to process. Everything she had felt, all the pain of being in love with someone she thought was her brother, now seemed to unravel. "So, we're not siblings," she said, barely able to believe the words she was speaking. Karim took a step closer to her, his expression still shaken but full of emotion. "I know this doesn't erase everything that's happened, but it does mean that what we feel isn't wrong." Layla looked at him for a long moment before finally stepping forward and wrapping her arms around him. Karim held her tightly, pulling her close. "I don't know what to do with all of this," she said, crying. "But I'm so relieved, Karim. Relieved that we don't have to be apart." Karim held her even tighter, feeling the weight of the past weeks start to lift. "Me too, Layla." The days following the revelation that Karim was adopted were a mix of relief and rebuilding. For Layla and Karim, knowing they weren't siblings changed everything, but it didn't erase the challenges they still faced. Layla carried the pain of all she had learned about her mother and the past. Karim, on the other hand, now questioned his identity. Who were his biological parents? Why was he adopted? These questions lingered in his mind, but for the first time, he didn't feel alone in facing them. Layla sat in the garden of the inn, watching Amir play with Yasmin. The two of them laughed as they ran around a small fountain, their joy filling the air. Karim approached quietly, observing the scene for a few moments before sitting beside Layla on the wooden bench. "You look more at peace," he said, sitting down next to her. She gave a small smile. "I'm trying. After everything that's happened, I think I can finally breathe a little." Karim nodded, but there was something in his expression, a mix of apprehension and determination. "Layla, I've been thinking a lot these past few days. About you, about Amir, about us." She turned to him, her heart quickening. Since they had discovered they weren't siblings, Layla knew this conversation would come, but she hadn't been sure how to begin it. "What are you thinking?" she asked softly. Karim took a deep breath, looking at her with a sincerity that left her disarmed. "I don't want to waste any more time. I've spent my entire life trying to fix my father's mistakes, but now I realize the only thing that truly matters is the present. I love you, Layla. I love you and Amir, and I want us to be together." Layla was silent, his words echoing in her mind. She knew how she felt about Karim, but she also knew how complicated everything still was. Finally, she replied, "Karim, I love you too, but we still have so much to work through. You're still dealing with the truth about your adoption. I'm still trying to process everything I've learned about my mother. I just don't want us to make decisions in the heat of the moment." Karim took her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. "I understand, Layla, and I'm willing to wait as long as it takes. I just want you to know that I'm here, no matter what happens." Layla felt tears well up in her eyes, but this time they were tears of relief. She squeezed his hand, finding comfort in his words. In the days that followed, Karim began investigating his adoption. He hired a private investigator to help trace any information about his biological parents. Layla supported him, even though she knew the process would be challenging. Meanwhile, they started building a new routine together. Karim spent more time with Amir, playing with him in the garden or reading bedtime stories. Layla watched these moments with a heart full of gratitude. Amir was finally living the childhood he deserved, surrounded by love and care. One evening, as Layla was tucking Amir into bed, Karim entered the room quietly. He watched as she kissed Amir's forehead and turned off the light. When she turned around, Karim smiled. "You're amazing with him," he said, admiring her. "He's my world," Layla replied with a smile. "I'd do anything for him." "I know," Karim said, stepping closer. "And I want to be part of that world, Layla. Not just as someone passing through, but as someone who's by your side through it all." Layla felt her heart warm at his words. A few weeks later, the private investigator Karim had hired returned with surprising information. He discovered that Karim's biological parents were a humble couple who couldn't afford to raise him. They had left Karim at an orphanage when he was just a baby, and Karim's adoptive father, Mr. Al-Hassan, had adopted him after visiting the orphanage as part of a charity event. "So, they left me because they couldn't take care of me," Karim said to Layla as they reviewed the investigator's documents. "That doesn't change who you are, Karim," Layla said, holding his hand. "You're strong, generous, and incredible. None of that depends on who your biological parents were." Karim smiled at her, grateful for her unwavering support. "And you're the reason I keep feeling that way." A month later, on a quiet evening, Karim prepared a special dinner for Layla in the mansion's garden. Under the soft lights hanging from the trees, he looked into her eyes and held her hands. "Layla, I know we've been through so much. I know we're still rebuilding, but I can't imagine my life without you and Amir." He took a deep breath before continuing. "I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Layla, will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Layla's face. She had never imagined she would find someone like Karim. Someone who not only accepted her completely, but also fought to be a part of her life. "Yes," she replied with a radiant smile. "Yes, I'll marry you." Karim smiled and pulled her into a tight embrace, feeling the weight of everything they had endured finally lift. A few months later, the wedding day finally arrived. Karim had arranged for the ceremony to take place in the mansion's gardens, transforming the space into a dreamlike setting. The trees were adorned with twinkling lights, and rows of white chairs surrounded an altar draped in flowers. Amir and Yasmin ran around excitedly, helping Amira with the final touches. Layla was in her room, adjusting her dress. It was a simple yet elegant design that seemed made just for her. Her hair was styled in a delicate bun, with a few loose strands framing her face softly. She looked at herself in the mirror and smiled, reflecting on how unexpectedly her life had changed. As the music began to play, Layla walked down the improvised aisle, holding a small bouquet of white flowers. Her eyes stayed fixed on Karim, who stood waiting for her at the altar, his face glowing with emotion. He wore a flawless suit, but what stood out the most was the sparkle in his eyes, a light that existed only because of her. When they finally met at the altar, Karim took her hands and whispered, "You look stunning." Layla smiled, holding back tears, "And you look incredible." During their vows, Karim promised Layla that he would care for her and Amir every day of his life and would do everything to make her feel loved and protected. Layla, in turn, spoke about how Karim had transformed her life and how he was the man she never thought she would find. When the officiant declared them husband and wife, Karim leaned in and kissed Layla as the guests erupted into applause. Amir and Yasmin ran up to hug them, completing the perfect moment. That evening, after the celebration, Layla and Karim were alone in their room, enjoying the quiet after such an emotional day. Layla held Karim's hands as they laughed about funny little moments from the ceremony. "Karim," she began, her expression a mix of nervousness and joy. "What is it?" he asked, concerned. Layla took a deep breath before continuing. "I wanted to tell you this earlier, but I thought the wedding would be the perfect time. Karim, I'm pregnant." Karim's eyes widened, and for a moment he was silent, processing her words. Then a huge smile spread across his face, and he pulled her into a tight embrace. "Are you serious?" he asked, his voice filled with emotion. "Yes," she replied, tears welling up in her eyes. Karim cupped her face in his hands and kissed her. "You've just made the happiest day of my life even more perfect." He knelt down, placing his hands gently on Layla's stomach, smiling up at her. "I promise to be the best father I can be, for Amir and for our baby." Layla laughed, tears streaming down her face. "I know you will be." In the months that followed, Layla and Karim began building an even stronger life together. Karim remained devoted to his family, while Layla discovered a new side of herself as a wife and soon-to-be mother once again. Amir was happier than ever, having found in Karim not just a father figure, but also a friend and partner for his adventures. When the baby was born a few months later, Karim held the tiny girl in his arms, tears streaming down his face. Layla watched him, smiling. "She's perfect," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "She is," Layla agreed, holding his hand. And as they looked at their new family, both of them knew that despite all the challenges they had faced, they had found something more precious than they could have ever imagined. A true and lasting love. What did you think of Layla and Karim's story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What's your score? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to follow all our stories. And be sure to check out more emotional stories by clicking here on the end screen.